Welcome to NFL World, where the NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And let's begin with the Vikings, because the Vikings have made a complete mess. A weird timeline they did here. They fired their general manager. I want to pronounce this name right. Quincy Adometa. It's a hard name to pronounce. So we'll just call him the GM for now. They fired their general manager on Friday. Thursday and Friday morning. It makes no sense to fire him at this point. Not because of firing him was the wrong idea. Firing him now makes no sense. Let me explain. So when the season ends, you have a couple weeks to the players will go and they'll go on vacations. They'll get away from everything. Coaches do the same thing. Front office people, they go and they work in the office, and then they go to senior bowl games in general. They'll do all those things. During this point in the year, there's the East-West Shrine Bowl, and there is the Senior Bowl. And that was being all done in Mobile, Alabama. Happens every year. That's where the general manager of the Vikings was when he got the call that he had been fired. That's right. He wasn't even in the building when he was let go. The season for the Vikings ended the first week of January. So why is it the last, work day of the January, the last Friday of January, you got fired? Why was it then? Why wasn't it before? That's the question I have. It's not that he deserved to keep his job. He's been there for 4 years, hasn't drafted a Pro Bowler yet. He was the guy who made the ultimate choice of, as the general manager, it's your responsibility to make the choice on whether or not you should go and pay somebody. They did not want to keep Sam Darnold around. He was the guy who was a driving force to wanting to draft J.J. McCarthy. He had this job for 4 years. It didn't pan out. I understand all of that. And I understand you had an abysmal season. It was awful. It was abysmal, for sure. But the firing him 5 weeks after the season ends doesn't make a lot of sense to me. 4 to 5 weeks after the season ends. And now you're starting your GM search. And the thing that's even more terrifying to think about is that they're only going to hire a GM after the draft. They have appointed the head of football operations as basically the interim general manager for the time being. So he's going to be the GM through the scouting combine, which happens in about 3 weeks' time, through the free agency, which happens in about 5 weeks' time, through 5 to 6 weeks' time. Then the draft, he's going to be the GM, which spans in about maybe 10 weeks' time. It's a lot to do in a very short period of time. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me to do it this way. And then hire a GM after the fact, because then he doesn't get to do what he wants. It just doesn't make sense to me. If you would have fired him the first week, it's kind of, think of it like this. The Jets just let go of their offense coordinator, and they have 7 coaching vacancies on that team. They've gutted that whole coaching staff. To do it after the fact in the last week of January when all the good coaches have either gotten head coaching jobs, gotten offensive coordinator jobs, or have reverted back to their current jobs, and now you're only starting your search, it's a bad process. It's the same thing for the Vikings. Bad process. You can't overlook a bad process. We all admit this. It was a horrible process. And I'll give you the Tom Pelissero, who's actually from the Minnesota area. He worked in Minnesota. He's been in Minnesota. He was the one that called the general manager a week ago. And he said, hey, I'm hearing this rumor going around that you are on the chopping block, that you're going to get fired. And the GM, the Vikings manager said, well, you know more than me. I have no knowledge of that. Now, obviously, you would not tell the person a week before you fired him that he's going to get fired. You wouldn't do that. But at the same time, you have to be aware of no one. How did he not know? And then why would they send him to basically ping pong between the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl? And then fire him. It's like, what was he even there for? What was the purpose of doing it that way? It makes no sense to me. Speaking of something that makes no sense, this Jim Schwartz situation in Cleveland. How did the Browns mess this up even more? I don't understand. It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind. It makes no sense. Jim Schwartz goes and is being interviewed for this head coaching job. And he gets passed over, and they end up hiring Todd Monk as the head coach. Okay. Not that I would do, but they didn't have to interview him twice to figure that out. They weren't going with Jim Schwartz. So why did they do it twice? I don't understand. That process stunk. A lot of people bowed out because of it. Because you wanted to do this analytic thing where you're going to interview them and then you're going to have them write essays and do homework assignments. It was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is already not a desirable job, and now you're making it even more undesirable. And that's what was going on. And finally, they settle on a coach, and it wasn't Jim Schwartz, even though Myles Garrett, Del Pitt, and Denzel Ward all voted for Jim Schwartz. They raved about this guy, that how they wanted him to have the opportunity to be the head coach, and he wasn't named the head coach. They went with Todd Monken. So Jim Schwartz, understandably so, was very upset. He thought he was going to get a head coaching job. He thought he was going to get another opportunity to be a head coach, which he hasn't had in a long time. He hasn't had since he was the head coach of the Detroit Lions. The issue with this wasn't that he was just upset. He's now saying, Jim Schwartz is, that he's not coming back. He already told the front office that, told his players on that defense that he's not coming back. He said his goodbyes and he's not coming back. Now, this is an interesting situation because he's under contract, so he can't technically leave. And he wasn't fired. So how did they work this? Does he take a year off? Do they try to entice him to come back? How does this work? I've never really been in this situation before, where a defensive coordinator says, no, I'm done, goodbye, when he's in contract and the team doesn't want him to leave. I've never been in this situation. Does he just retire? What does he do? You don't know. And what are the rules if he does retire? Because he's still in contract, therefore the Browns would have his rights. How does that work? It becomes a very convoluted situation. And that's the problem I have with this. It becomes very convoluted because now you have guys like Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and other people on that defense who are like, I want to play for Jim Schwartz, and if he's not here, I want to leave. The two names, one of the reporters said that it's possible and almost likely that Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett both request trades. So let me start with Myles Garrett. This is one to do. Number one, Myles Garrett, if he is traded, would have to be a seismic haul, a seismic shift in way it has happened because he got paid last offseason. That would be a lot of money in the dead cap for multiple years for the Browns. They just got out from under that with the Deshaun Watson deal. Do they want to do it again? I don't think so. He's also had his best season. Even though he's 30 years old, he had his best season. So you are going to get a lot of assets. So what is this, the quote-unquote Godfather offer going to be? It's going to have to be multiple firsts, multiple seconds, multiple players, something. It's going to be a lot. But here's the other thing that is not talked about. He signed a big contract last offseason. If he signed a big contract last offseason, that he's now making over $40 million, he can kind of wipe his tears with that money. Because they're going to be like, hey, you took the money, you stayed in a horrible situation, and you took the money. Where you could have gone to a better situation for far less money. And you chose more money. And I get it. At the same time, that's what they did. That's what he did. Now, in the case of Denzel Ward, I think it's more possible. Yes, he's a highly paid corner. Less money would be put on the dead cap, so it seems more likely that he could be moved of the two. It would still be a haul. It would still be very expensive to get him. But you have a very talented corner who's on an expiring contract. It would fit a lot of teams. It really would. Now, the issue that comes around is not so much the money. It's not even so much a new contract. It's the injuries. He's had a lot of concussions in his career. A lot of concussions. Do teams want to take a chance with that? And if they are willing to, does that drive the price down because of the amount of concussions he's had? Because when he's healthy, he's an awesome football player. The problem is he hasn't really been healthy. So that's a question we need to have is if they do trade Denzel Ward, or even if they do trade Myles Garrett, what are they getting back in return? And if, in the case of Ward, does his injuries play a big factor? We shall see what happens in the coming weeks and months. I think Ward is, of the two, the most likely to be moved. That's my opinion. Let's move on to Mike Lefleur and Clint Kubiak. Mike Lefleur is the brother of Matt Lefleur. Mike just got his first head coaching job with the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals made the choice to move on from Jonathan Gannon, and they were searching for a head coach. They decided to go right in their division, which is not very common, even though we've seen it quite a bit in the cycle of coaches going from one part of that division to the same part, but to a different team in that division as a head coach. We haven't seen that. We don't see it very often. Mike Lefleur be going from the Rams, who he's been with since 2023 after coming over from the Jets, now the head coach of the Cardinals. His first main task will be what to do with Kyler Murray, who the third day of the new league year, which happens in March, would guarantee Kyler Murray's contract, not for this year, because that's already guaranteed, but for 2027. You know you're not going to have him on the team. Do you try to find a trade partner? Do you try to find a way to cut him and hopefully just eat all the dead cap money? He's owed $30 million in guarantees, so you immediately have to take that on. It would be a lot of money that he would have to take, and that team would have to take. Also, if you're the Cardinals, how much can we do the song and dance? You can't keep firing coaches every third year. Doesn't work. I know you don't have a lot of these good choices, but since Bruce Arians left, they've been disasters. Steve Wilkes, not very good. He was scapegoated, but not very good. Cliff Kingsbury, not great, but you had him around for a while. Jonathan Gannon, not good. Now it's Mike Lefleur. It's going to be interesting. Also, to be something that needs to be said, Mike Lefleur doesn't call the plays with the Rams. So now you're getting a non-play calling head coach, basically. You're getting a guy who's going to want to call his own plays that didn't call his own plays for the last couple of years. Needs to be worth noting. The last one, first of all, the Raiders, I think the Raiders nailed this. They are zeroing in on hiring Clint Kubiak as their head coach. I love this pick because Kubiak, you're going to be like, who is that? Yes, that is Gary Kubiak's son. Gary Kubiak, head coach of the Broncos, who won Super Bowl 50 in Santa Clara. Clint Kubiak has the chance to do that as the offensive coordinator of the Seahawks in Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, which would also be amazing. Clint is a brilliant offensive mind. I liked him even when he was with the Saints a year ago. I thought he was really good. They had that 2-3 week stretch where they were scoring points all over the place. Deep shots, play action, run game, mirroring the run game to the pass game. I love that. And then it fell apart. Derek Carr gets hurt, injuries, old roster. Dennis Allen gets fired, he gets fired. When the head coach gets fired, everybody gets fired. He finds himself in Seattle. They trade Geno Smith. They sign Sam Darnold. And now all of a sudden, they have this really talented defense. They have a good play-action quarterback in Sam Darnold. They have a good run game led by Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker III. They just do a lot of positive things. You have to figure out, who's going to be the receiver? We just traded away DK Metcalf. We now are signing Cooper Kupp to be that wide receiver 2. We need to make a trade. Now let's bring in Raheed Shaheed midseason, who Kubiak knows from New Orleans. So I like this choice by the Raiders. And it's clear that, look, the Raiders, they need a quarterback and they need a head coach. They need those guys on the same page. They feel Clint Kubiak is the best guy to be that head coach and to mentor and coach up a young quarterback and develop him. Because he actually did pretty well last year, Clint Kubiak did, when he had to use Spencer Rattler. He did pretty well. It was not perfect, but it was not bad. It wasn't horrible. This guy knows how to coach. And it's obviously that they're trying to get Mendoza. I think that would fit them very well. Because if you're the Raiders, what you're trying to accomplish this year, and what you're trying to accomplish in 2026, is to at least be competitive on one side of the ball. Not necessarily on both, but on one side. Maybe that can happen with Clint Kubiak. It's the same thing I said about the Cardinals. Raiders, are you done playing with it? Are you done dancing to this tune? Are you done with this? You have to be. Because you can't keep doing this constant turnover and gutting the teams over and over again. It's not working. Fix it. Find a real solution, not just we'll do this for 2 years and then we'll think of something else. Let me know in the comments what do you think about what's going on in Minnesota and Cleveland? And also, do you like the hiring of Mike Lefleur to the Arizona Cardinals and Clint Kubiak to the Las Vegas Raiders? For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hubert. Out.